Hey, and welcome to the podcast. We are happy to be back, and we are continuing our series for the month of September on group growth. And so last week, David and I began the conversation for this podcast segment, and we started talking through the idea of what are the four main ways, or what are four ways that you work on building and maintaining growth in your youth group. And we felt that was a good conversation for the month of September because we're all still kind of getting into it. August is done, all the back to school things are finished, and now it's time. Now it's the opportunity where we can hit the ground running and work on maintaining the excitement and the group that we had with all the back to school activities. And so last week we talked about the power of personal invitation. We talked about just encouraging and equipping your students to be the ones that are inviting people, because they have more buy-in for other people. And so if they are working to invite people, they're inviting friends, they're inviting people they know, and they're adding on to that group culture and that group mentality. And so this week we are kind of continuing on to that trend, and it's one of those things that, like, inviting people is great, but when students get there, one of the first things that they have to do is kind of learn the culture of your group and buy into the culture of your group in order for it to maintain and be a sustainable thing. And there's a ton of different things that we're going to talk about with the idea, but today is just basically going to be the conversation about how to create a culture that students want to belong to. And so with that, like, I think my kind of beginning thought or beginning question with this is just the mindset of, like, why do people love being a part of sports teams? Why do people love to be in clubs? Whether it's theater or band or anything to that nature. Why do they enjoy being in online communities? One of the biggest communities in our culture today is the online gaming community. And it is just one of those things. Why do all those things exist, and why are they all so prevalent and powerful in our culture today? And it's just the mindset that people feel like they belong. And I think that's the big deal. And so the question that we're going to kind of address, and the question that we want you to think on with this episode, is what kind of culture does your youth group communicate the moment someone walks in? Um, and so there's a couple things that we're going to talk about, but that is kind of the introspection question for this week. And so with that, like, David, obviously there's a bunch of different things that we can go through, but I think primarily, first and foremost, like, in order to belong, you have to feel safe. And so that's a huge one. So why don't we jump into that first? Because I think that is the foundational level of, like, if students don't feel safe where they are, they're not going to stay. And it doesn't necessarily mean like health wise safe, but like they feel like they're not going to be attacked. They feel like what they share in the group is going to stay that stuff up.
Kind of
So,
a silly example, but kind of also goes into the belonging, like with the sports team. Obviously, I'm a big Eagles fan, and I live in Texas. So there's not just a lot of us in Texas for obvious reasons. This is Cowboys country. I recognize that. But one thing that I stumbled upon not too long ago, my son and I like to collect sports cards together. It's just kind of a hobby that we do. It's been a lot of fun. And I was in a random stream, and they were all pretty much everybody in the show were Eagles fans in Philadelphia. And so they got to asking who everybody liked. And I, of course, went in there, said something like "Go Eagles" or "Go Birds" or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, awesome! Are you from Philadelphia?" And I was like, "No, actually, I'm from Texas." And they're like, "Okay, hang on, we're stopping everything we're doing. There's Eagles fans in Texas." I was like, "Actually, there's more than you would think." But that said, it was, we got to talking, and they were telling me about kind of the experience of what it's like to go to an Eagles game and stuff like that. The guy that was running the stream is a season ticket holder, so he's been to so many games and was talking about, growing up, getting to experience stuff like that with his dad and collecting cards and stuff. And so it was just a really cool thing. And what I realized is not only do we have this shared fandom for this team that we love, but there's also so many other things that, he got to do with his dad, and he was hoping to get to do one day with his kid, and, just getting to talk about that. And my son was asking questions and he was answering them. It was just really, like typing in all his questions and stuff like that. And so it was just a lot of fun, and it made me feel a part of something, because a lot of times I'm an Eagles fan, and so I very quietly watch the games. We just played the Cowboys last week, and so I'm very quiet while all my friends are, you know, trash talking me
Boo.
while Philly won. just just keep that out there. But it's one of those things where I felt like, hey, I'm actually with my people. Like, this is really cool. And so, it's a reminder. I think for us in youth ministry, we've been in church culture for a really long time. Most of us, there's not, I would say a lot of the people that listen, if you are a youth pastor, you have at least been involved in a church in some level of leadership for at least a couple of years, and I think there's a point, and then when you get like Brent and I, who've been in church our whole lives and have been doing youth ministry long enough to be, I mean, let's be honest, I've been doing youth ministry longer than any of my students have been alive. And so it's easy to forget what it's like to be a student who's never walked into that. We know what the culture is supposed to be. We know what and so someone who's walking in, if they're kind of in that similarity of a fandom, like they're walking into your church, they may not necessarily be a fan right away. They may not understand that culture. And so they're walking in like culture shock, and so I think it is important for us to take the time. A good example of this is our last Wednesday, literally a week ago. We had a student show up, and they came to refuel, and super super sweet kid. But we were starting a new model for the way that we do our table talk small groups, and he, inside of the rules, there's a scripture passage, and we're all going to read it, and then we're all going to go around and share what it means. And he literally looked at me and just kind of whispered in my ear. He was like, "Do I have to share? It says everyone around the table has to share. I don't even know what this means." So like, I was like, "Hey, you're good. I'm just going to ask you to just kind of sit along with us, like see the way we do it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to. You don't even have to grab everybody. Like, you can just I'll sit right next to you, and we'll talk about it together. You can just kind of whisper, or even better, man. I gave him a notepad and was like, hey, if you have a question, write it down, slide it. Nobody even has to know. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah. And so because of that, it gave him an opportunity to kind of go, okay, I can just sit back and observe. I don't have to necessarily engage, and I just was like, if you have something and you'd like to, man, we'd love to hear your thoughts too. And just know there's no stupid answers, there's no bad answers, anything like that, or wrong answers. It's just your experience. And he was like, okay, cool. So he kind of hung out for a little bit. Once he started to see what it was and got comfortable, he asked a question. And beautifully, what I love about our students is they immediately was like, that's such a good point. Like, I really like that. Like, what do you think about this? And they started asking follow-up questions. And again, the students started to step up and lead, and made him feel really comfortable. And afterwards, like I said, I started intentionally. We went through it intentionally. And then afterwards, I asked him a couple questions. I was like, hey, was that as scary as you thought it was going to be? He was like, no, that was a lot of fun. He's like, I can't wait for next week. I was like, so that's one of those things where it's like, how do we intentionally find ways to help our students not only feel like they can belong, but be safe and not knowing what it is. There's so much assumption, I think, sometimes that we do, and we're like, oh yeah, what we're doing is easy and everybody can jump in. And I think for the most part, as youth pastors, we try to do that. We try to make the things that we do easy enough where anybody can jump right in. But sometimes we may have to strip a few layers back and realize for a student, this might be like, whoa, this is too much. So what can we do? And that might mean even as the youth pastor, like, could I have put another leader with them? Sure, I could. Could I have put another student with them? Sure, I could. And they would have done great. But in that moment, he attached himself to me. For whatever reason, he attached himself to me. And I was like, okay, my focus is on you, and I'm going to let my leaders focus on everybody else. And that worked out for last week. You're not always going to be the position to be able to
Yeah.
do that. But I think I realized very quickly, and it was very um, indicative of what we talked about last week is being intentional when that new student comes, and so just making him feel safe and making him feel welcome, and like I said, peeling back those layers. He had never been to a youth group before. It was,
Yeah. No, that's good. That's real good. And I mean, I think your story kind of points to three things specifically that we kind of wanted to hit on, and that's just this mindset that first off, in order to have this idea or this opportunity of creating a culture of like safety and authenticity, is the fact that students want a safe space to be real. And so even in your story, just this mindset of like, do I have to? I don't. That's immediately saying, "Oh, I don't know if I feel safe anymore," and you stepping in and being, "No, no, 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 no. Like, hey, like you're totally fine. Like I'm gonna sit next to you." Like you're immediately combating that, "Oh crap, I don't feel safe," into a place of safety. And then also you're modeling the vulnerability of leaders. And so with that being said, like just the mindset of like the leaders are actually here for me is a huge part. And then finally, like the rest of your group coming in with just this idea of like there was no like, oh, like you don't know the answers, like there's no clicks, there's no judgment, and it was genuinely an opportunity for everybody to belong. And so with that, that's huge. And I think the other aspect of this is sometimes we have kids come in. I have a similar story, except a couple years back I had a kid come into my youth group, and he was a senior in high school when he started. And the first Wednesday that he showed up, he was like, "Just so you know," he was like, "I'm an atheist." And I was like, "That's great. Love that you're here, bud." Kind of thing like that. And then I was like, "Dude, but I heard that you play piano." He was like, "Oh yeah." He was like, "I've done it. I'm classically trained, like done piano my entire life." And I was like, "Dude, that's awesome." I was like, "We don't have a pianist right now for our praise team." I was like, "I understand that you might not necessarily understand the words, but would that be something that you want to help us out with, just for the nature of like you know how to play piano really, really well?" And so he like starts. And I know immediately some of y'all are like, "Why, gosh, why would you put an atheist on the leadership of a praise team?" I I it was one of those things that the dude wanted a place to belong, and I gave him it. And so he comes to practice every single week. He comes to youth every single week. And I wish I could say that there was this just magical like conversion moment that like before he graduated high school, he like came to know Jesus and like it was this huge magical situation. He didn't. But there were a couple things that I absolutely loved in this opportunity, in this encounter with this student. First off, multiple times he told me, "Man, I don't know what it is about this music." He was like, "I just love playing it." He was like, "It is beautifully written. It is beautiful melodies." He was like, "And I don't know," because we played a couple hymns too. And he was like, "I don't know what it is about hymns." He was like, "But they are so beautiful." And I was like, "Dude, they are. Like, it's a lot of fun." And he was like, "And it's so much fun to play with other people in a band." And I was like, "That, yeah, man, it's awesome." And so the last night that he was with us, our last Wednesday night of his senior year, he came up to me and he was like, "Man," he's like, "I want you to know," he was like, I don't know if I believe in Jesus still." He was like, "But I wanted to let you know I've never been a part of a group that cared and was more meaningful in my life." And I was just like, "Dude, that is like hands down the biggest compliment you could have ever
yeah,
given me." Like, I was like, "It is," that was like, "It's an honor to have you. Like, we've loved your time here, man." And I hope this just, um, I hope you just take the fact that like there are communities that exist out there that care about you,
yeah,
kind of thing like that. And I was like, "And if you have any questions, you ever want to talk, man, you have my cell phone. Feel free to call." Um, and it was just this mindset of like, he came in and he was like, "Man, I don't know, like, I'm an atheist," kind of thing like that, expecting immediate judgment, expecting these like opportunities to where like he was going to be like, "Well," like where the rest of the group would be like, "Well, what's your answer, Mr. Atheist," kind of thing like that. And it very much wasn't.
yeah,
We loved him, we embraced him, we gave him opportunities to shine with what he was good at. And the dude rocked it. He actually even played. I think that year we even led worship at church twice, and his parents came that were also atheists, came to church and listened to him play piano for the worship team, which was really, really
You
cool.
never know
Um,
what seeds are being planted in that moment. And you're
oh, yeah,
100% right. I was about
yeah,
to address it and you said it, but like there are so many people who disagree with that philosophy of like, don't you understand you're putting them in leadership positions? They need to be X, Y, and Z. And I agree. I do agree with that. But I also think that
yeah,
there are moments where sometimes you have to belong before you can believe. It's not
yeah,
always the other way around where you believe and now you want to serve. Because let's be completely honest, if all of us were to take a deep, hard look at our congregations and look at the people in the pews, there are people who show up on a Sunday morning who believe in God. They're wonderful people. They will never serve. They just,
yeah,
there are people who
yeah,
want to serve, want to plug in, want to belong, and don't believe. And at some point,
yeah,
that continued opportunity to serve, every time that they serve, God is getting an opportunity to reveal himself in a new and fresh way to that person. And we may never see the seeds of
yeah,
that. That student might live to be 35 before it finally clicks. Um,
yeah,
and that's the hope and that's the prayer. But I mean, you never
yeah,
know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had situations like that. I had exact same thing. I had a piano player, not necessarily an atheist, more on the agnostic side, um, believes there is a God, but not really sure how it works out. And I'm like, well, the basic core is it's Jesus or nothing. Like there's no like way in,
yeah,
like kind of situation. And so, but the seeds were planted, and that person is still asking questions. Graduated
yeah,
2 years ago, still texts me asking questions. I don't get
yeah,
that opportunity to see that person every week and to really pour into to
yeah,
the person, but at the same time, I still get texts, and some of those are
yeah.
very like deeply spiritual questions, and I'm like, okay, and
Oh,
this
yeah,
is a beautiful thing. Maybe I'll see the seeds of it. Maybe I won't, but I'm going to continue
yeah,
to take those opportunities when they're given to me,
yeah.
and that's what we're here to
When
do.
it's yeah, very much. And it's one of those things that like I mean, at the end of the day, I do and I want to emphasize the fact that I do believe that there are certain things that like unless you are strong in faith, you should never do in leadership. I would have never gotten up and asked him
No,
to
exactly.
teach. Because that was not the right place
But
and the
it's that
right time.
situation may be
However,
different.
giving that giving that kid an opportunity to play piano gave him an entire year of being presented with the gospel. And he asked tons of questions. We have some real hardcore apologetic kids in our group too, where they're like literally their bread and butter and their like favorite thing to do in their free time is read philosophy and theology and stuff like that.
Get after
Way
our
more
own
than I ever
hearts.
have. Way more than I have ever had. And so it's just this mindset that like he has like we have some kids and like those kids went to town on him. And it's just one of those things like you said, he might be 35, but like it's an opportunity for us to have stepped in and presented the gospel in a way where he also felt like he belonged and had an opportunity to serve too, and that welcome and caring was enough for him to stick around all year. And so it's a huge deal. And like I said, it's a case by case situation. You can't do this with every kid, obviously, but that kid was super respectful. He was a very um, patient and well mannered kid. He never tried to speak up or speak over us as far as like his beliefs. He was listening. He was taking notes. He was using every opportunity to hear what we had to say. And it was really cool. And he was super respectful in that mindset. I've had some other kids that I probably wouldn't have done the same thing, but that kid specifically was an opportunity that I saw and it was beneficial. And I mean, I feel like there was a great return out of it too. And so, but safety and authenticity are two and probably the primary factors of creating a culture. Like if you don't have these two things and students can't feel like they're safe and can't feel like they can be real, you're not going to keep kids. Um, because if they feel like what they share on youth group comes to school the next day, they're not going to stay in your youth group. if they can't feel like they can actually be safe, and not have to answer questions or be forced to do things, they're not going to stay either. And it's just one of those things. And that's one that I have to
Mhm.
navigate pretty carefully because a lot of times I do push kids, and I push them into like embracing and stepping out of their comfort zone. And so I have to be really, really careful on which kids I do that
Yeah.
with.
One
Um,
last thing I'm going to say on this particular
you're good.
point that we actually saw the fruit of this last Sunday. Um, Getting here, I realized very quickly there was a very clear divide. And I think I've talked about it on the podcast with all the different schools, and that's completely natural. I want to make that clear. Like sometimes we can get frustrated because it's just like we're all one youth group. You guys have all been going to the same church for a long time. Why is there still these cliques? And we have to realize like you go to school with this group of people every single day. You spend more time with this group of people than you do with anybody else, and then there's natural rivalries and all kinds of other things that come with that. And so part of that safety is realizing if you've got all these different high schools, especially if they're competing with each other, there is a natural bit of rivalry and there's some fun that you can lean into with that. But you also have to be really careful not to allow it to get ugly because it can, and I've seen it happen. And so with this group, there was never really ugliness, so to speak, or at least that I would characterize. But there was definitely a very clear cut divide, and even to the point of
Yeah.
um, we're gonna hang out with our people, and you guys can hang out with your people. I literally heard it said, and I was like, I'm changing that as fast as I can. And so it's been sort of little intentional moments to bring them together, to also to highlight certain things. Like part of our culture is celebrating things. And so when one person does something really good, we celebrate it. And so we've got to a point where we ask the question, we've got a lot of athletes, hey, what is one really, really good thing that you saw in your sport today? And the whole group celebrates it. And then the same thing, we go down the line, and that's what we do in Sunday school to kind of start. And what we started realizing is um, just a few weeks ago is one Blackwell kid said something, and all my Sweetwater kids like jumped up and started clapping for him like big, and I was like, and the look on his face like, whoa, Sweetwater celebrating me. Then when Sweetwater kids started sharing their stuff, all the Blackwell kids stood up and started clapping for them. And it was this random thing that happened in a game that we did one day. So it's super obnoxious, but the kids love it. So I just lean into it. It was fun like the first two times, and now I'm like, but that said, these kids are feeling celebrated, and that's what matters. And so then we get to
Hmm.
Sunday, and I noticed for the first time they didn't naturally sit at their different tables. Everyone mixed. They like brought three tables, and this was just while we were waiting to go to a connected event that we did in Stanford. And But they brought all the tables together and all sat together. And I was like, I looked at my leaders and was like, y'all see this? And then in the vans, the same thing. Like they got in the vans and they were all like mixed, and it was literally like back row to front row. There wasn't like all these different conversations. One conversation the whole way up, one conversation the whole way back. Just about. There's little side things and stuff like that, but everybody was paying attention to everybody and laughing and cutting up. And I was just like, we've arrived. This is what I set in motion when I first got here a year ago, and we're seeing the fruit of it. I'm like, man, but you have to be intentional with that safe environment and going, okay, how do we embrace the things that make them different, but also celebrate the things that honestly we all have in common, and it's that every single one of us want to be celebrated for our accomplishments, no matter how small they are. And when the whole group begins to do that, you begin a culture of not only celebration but a culture of love and feeling seen in their things. And even if it's against your team or it's a rivalry situation, to go, hey, I may not like your team, but that was a really nice touchdown. Well done. That's so much for a
Yeah.
student.
Sure. No, and I think another one that really kind of and it kind of is the same mindset and same model is, I mean, most youth pastors, you're either going to deal with multiple schools, And if you don't deal with multiple schools and you're saying, well, that doesn't really apply to me, I guarantee you the other big click factor in your group is what grade you're in. And so having those opportunities to squash that click is really really important too. And sometimes that one's difficult. Sometimes that one's really really hard because all of the high school kids don't remember when they were in junior high, and they don't remember being the annoying ones or the crazy ones
which is
or
why I
whatever.
remind them every chance I
And
get.
yeah. And so the thing is I always tell my high schoolers, be the high schooler that you wish you had when you were a junior higher. And so with that, like sometimes that works well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have to like um pr- prophetically slap my high school. I don't know how else to
Oh yeah.
say it. It's just like, what the heck are y'all
Huh?
doing? Like y'all are not making this space welcome for the junior high.
I tell our
Step it
students
up,
the exact same
kind of
thing
thing.
because it's like they're like, well, because I always hear that like, well, this is what I had to deal with. Like it was way worse when I was, at least it's a little bit better. And I'm like, do you back then when you were in junior high, would you have settled for a little bit better, or would you have said, why can't you just be nice to me?
Yeah,
It's not that hard. Be that person. I
yeah,
say that exact same thing. So I love that y'all do that
definitely.
too.
Yeah, and so, I mean, with it and you're probably, I mean, I would assume if you're listening to this, that is something that you deal with. There are quite a few churches that have multiple schools too. Either even if you only have one school in your town, maybe you have kids that are go to another school out of town and they come to your church. It happens pretty regularly. But those two things are very, very big. Um, to handle and just really, really work on the mindset of like our youth group is the important thing. And more than anything, it's not even necessarily that it's our youth group, it's to present this culture and present this model that you are brothers and sisters in Jesus. And that is the foundational support. Like you are connected and you are networked through the body of Christ. And there is nothing that is a greater opportunity for you to be a part of. And so, really, really working on that, really, like I said, leads to that safety and authenticity. But we are going to move on just to the mindset of the others. We had two others to kind of talk through today. The other one is just this mindset of like reminding and utilizing the fact in creating your culture that fun and joy are both spiritual disciplines. And this is one that I'm the Grinch. I've said it multiple times on here when it comes to fun and games. Like there's a time and a place. It doesn't happen on Wednesday nights. That doesn't mean that our kids can't have fun. There is plenty of hangout time for them before we start teaching and worship. But we don't make time for games on Wednesday nights, but we do make time for games. And so having those opportunities to where we can show that my pastor says all the time, he's like, did you know that you could laugh in church? Did you know that you can have fun in church? Kind of thing like that. And it's just this mindset. He kind of says it tongue in cheek, but a lot of people just have this mindset that like church is serious and like we're here to learn about God. And like if you laugh in the wrong time when the pastor doesn't make a joke, then like you might as well just leave because you're not taking this seriously and stuff like that. And I think sometimes that really, really kind of boils down through leadership. And I think a lot of times that is modeled by parents, and so it's really a dynamic that has to be addressed because if you are not allowing your kids to goof off and have fun in your group, that's a huge part of culture. I mean, obviously, you want them to have fun within parameters. You don't let them just go crazy and be like, "Oh, y'all have fun. It's a free hour." But utilizing the opportunity to express that fun and joy are spiritual disciplines is a huge huge avenue of creating a culture, and reminding them that joy and joyful environments literally reflect the kingdom of God. You can look at a ton of different things. Psalm 16:11 jumps to my brain. But with that mindset, like games have a purpose, games have a spot, and just opportunities for joy and fun, and celebrating that joy and fun is really, really important. Games can be relational bridges, they don't have to just be time fillers. And so use the opportunities and be, I mean, I think that was one of the things a couple years back, and we've mentioned grow curriculum a couple times in this podcast. And I don't use them anymore, but one of the things that when I started looking at them originally was just this mindset of I thought that they did a really, really good job at the beginning of the game that was attached to the lesson tied in. And so you had this game that directly associated to what was being taught that day. And sometimes the games were goofy and weird and awkward. And they were like, this didn't really seem like that much fun, but it gave them an opportunity to get happy, to have some opportunities for laughter and enjoy their time together. And then it was just this cool opportunity to immediately tangent into the lesson straight off of the game. And so with that, like it's like I said, I don't use those anymore, but it was one of those things that I don't think I'd ever seen games in that perspective. And so utilizing that opportunity of like if you do provide games on Wednesday nights or Sunday nights or Thursday nights or whenever you do youth ministry, if games are a regular part of your week to week ministry, use them as a tool, don't use them as a time filler. And so utilize that opportunity to build relationships because that's another opportunity that's literally right there for you. And more than anything, I've heard time and time again, a first time kid does not come back because they learned about Jesus.
And two,
A first time a first time kid comes back because they had fun and
yeah,
they felt like they
yeah.
belonged.
To your point, using it as a tool, we have a youth fantasy football league. Um, it's realizing there are fun things that we can do that don't necessarily have to be even on Wednesdays and Sunday nights. And so we can talk
Yeah.
fantasy all week long, and it opens up opportunities. We have like a little group chat for it, and it's a simple thing, but like just the camaraderie of, oh, dude, did you see how many fantasy points Josh Allen? Like we were all watching it together, and our group chat. I mean, they were buzzing. Like, man, Josh Allen's killing it. Like this is in crazy game. Like who has Josh Allen? And for us, that's Will Tomlin.
I
And
mean,
I mean,
just saying, shout out Bills
right?
Mafia.
That
That game was
so fun,
phenomenal.
so fun. And so I was like, to me, that it's gonna be hard to top that game this year. And that's week
Yeah,
one. That's
that
crazy.
was a
But you
pretty
know what I
one.
mean? Like it
Yeah.
allows that camaraderie and the conversation. And now they're talking all week long. And this is people from, again, it's mixed schools. We've got two people in the league that
Mhm.
don't even go to our church. But I'm hoping that this is planting the seeds for them to want to be a part, because now they have a
Yeah.
shared conversation. And so that's just one avenue. What are some other things that you can do and utilize that give you that opportunity? Like maybe you've got a whole bunch of students that really love coffee, and so you're able to, you know, but there's so many different fun
Yeah.
ways to use them as tools to foster that relationship. And we go ham with it. Like I have a whole trophy ready to go for the winner, and next year we started too late this year, but we're going to do like a whole draft board, and everyone's going to dress up nice and fancy for it, and we're inviting the rest of the youth group to like come and cheer on, and we're going to make it a competition. Like, so not only are we drafting players, we're drafting students that will be part of our team, so to speak. And so now it's like you've got your fantasy owner or whatever, but like these are your team, and you'll have to make the decision of who you're going to draft together. So now it's pulling more people in that maybe don't necessarily want to play, but they get to win through this. And so then the prize will be, there's a trophy for the team that wins, but there's a group around it, and everyone's going to get a prize. Now we're bringing the whole youth group in. Even if they're not super
That's a cool
interested
idea.
in fantasy football, they get to win vicariously because this guy did well. I don't know anything about football, but
Yeah.
guess what? I get a gift card. Who cares?
Yeah. No, that's a cool thing, and I think somewhere along the way, like, there's just this mindset that, like, especially I don't know why it, like, kinda just circles youth groups so bad, but it's just this mindset of, like, "Oh, well, like, we can hang out outside of youth group?"
Crazy.
And I've seen this time and time again, it doesn't matter what group I'm in, just this, like, revelation of, like, students understanding that, like, youth group is not just at youth. like you can literally go hang out with friends in your youth program. It is something that has baffled me forever, but it's just like you said, finding that
Mhm.
niche, finding that group of students that wants to connect. I've said this on the podcast before, but we had a Minecraft realm for 3 years, and our church paid for it. And the thing about Minecraft Realms, if you're not familiar, is I would say most of your kids probably have played it or still play it. Um, and it's just one of those things that like when you utilize those spaces, Minecraft Realm, it was like 10, $12 a month. Um, and you can have as many people on it as you want. But only 10 people can be allowed on at the same time. Um, I It was great. And the thing is with schedules and flexibility of students, we hardly ever hit that 10 at the same time, but it's one of those where you hop on and then you hop on a couple days later and like there's things that have been built and things that have been like constructed, and like I got geeky with it for a little while, and I like learned how to do like different coding things and stuff like that to where I could like give people different sections of the world, and like I figured out on watched a couple YouTube videos on how to make games in Minecraft that they could go
Nice.
play, and um just stuff like that. But it was like I don't really do this, but like, and like I'm gonna be honest, for a while like I counted being on Minecraft as office hours
Are you?
because I was
Yeah.
utilizing that realm and I was building stuff for that
Well, yeah, and you're
program
spending
and for
time
that
with your
group.
students intentionally. How's that any
Yeah.
different than going
And
to a
so
sports game or whatever it might be?
yeah, especially over
Yeah.
the summer, like, when I was sitting in my office over the summer and kids were home, I was be like, "Hey, I'll be on Minecraft for the next 2 hours," like, and it was just one of those things, like, and some kids were like, "That's stupid, I'm never gonna touch Minecraft, I don't play that game." I was like, "That's great, it's not for you
Yeah.
then, like, everybody else that wants to,
Well,
get
and
on,
think
have
about
fun,
other video
awesome."
games too. Like there are some games that are universal no matter what. Like
Mhm.
Call of Duty is not going to be for everybody,
Yeah.
and I avoid Call of Duty in church
No.
especially for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
But um, something like Super Smash Bros. Simple
Oh, yeah.
Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Do a tournament, and like
Yeah.
everybody gets to be a part of
Yeah.
it. Let them know there's a gift card or whatever it might be. Maybe it's a free T-shirt. I don't know. Like it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
anything crazy.
Yeah, have a game night. That's one thing that we do. We have game nights, and I have a bunch of retro, um,
Mhm.
games, game consoles, like N64. I have an Atari. I have a, Super Nintendo. I bring up all the old school video game systems and plug them in, and I steal TVs from the entire church and just bring them all to the youth room and just have a
Yes,
bunch of
sir.
different
Yes,
consoles
sir.
plugged in. And it's something that the kids are like, "Oh, that's like I've never even seen this one, or I've never played this before." And it's just one of those things. The kids, like, for the kids that are interested in gaming, like it's like they like it. It's really really cool, and it builds that unity because kids will. Like that's a wall breaker when they're like, oh crap, we have 3 people, we need 4. Hey,
Yeah.
come play with us,
Well, and the
kind of
other
thing
thing
like that.
too is that it
But
gives you a
then,
chance to elevate. Let's just call it
yeah,
what it is. Like the kids that are usually more on the gaming side are usually nerds like me and Brent,
hmm
and so it gives a chance for say you've got this more popular person who doesn't play video games, and now all of a sudden they're like,
yeah,
hey, how do I do this? Now that nerdy kid who sits in the corner and barely talks to anybody can say, I got you. Let me help you out. That fosters
yep,
a relationship and a
yeah.
connection that maybe never would have been given. Which I mean,
Yep.
granted,
And then the other aspect of it is, like, we do a video game night, but then also every Super Bowl Sunday, we do a flag
yep,
football game. And so, like, we have kids that come out, and they are incredibly more athletic than I am, and I get out there and make a fool of myself. And it's just one of those things, like, but we have crowds that come to both, and some of the kids that come to one come to the other one, and some don't. But just utilizing those opportunities for building relationships through games and having fun is super, super important. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Games are how, like, I preach and preach and preach the fact that, like, game nights or game opportunities are our opportunity, and I really, really encourage students to bring friends to those, because then it's a hey man, we had a lot of fun, this was really really cool, hey come join us this Wednesday. Oh okay, well yeah, like, Sure. And so we do a live, like a real life Among Us night. We do Winter Olympics. We do paintball. We do all kinds of stuff. And it's just one of those things. Is those are opportunities for students to get to have fun and experience joy with the group, and build that tie-in. And then that typically brings into them being a part of a Wednesday night in the near future.
Yeah,
So,
I started writing some stuff down
um,
and was like, man,
go for
we started spitballing throughout the episode, and I was like,
it.
all of those, I was like, I need to visit this idea and this idea. And it's like, okay, I better write
Yeah,
all this because I'm going to forget.
yeah.
Anyway,
No, and it's one of those things. And then yeah, it's just finding those opportunities to allow your students to thrive. And if you can break those walls that we were
yeah,
talking about earlier with these opportunities, I mean it's a
yeah,
win-win.
absolutely.
And so yeah, and so kind of moving into our third point, and this was kind of the last one that we were going to touch on today, was just this mindset of first impressions and consistency. I cannot say this enough. If your youth group is not consistent, aka like they don't know what you're going to do, it is going to be up in the air every single week. Kids, if they don't know what's going on, really don't like to be there. If kids don't know who's going to be there, they don't like to be there. And so when you build that consistency of like, hey, every Wednesday night we do the exact same thing so they know what's coming, it is super, super important. When you have game nights, make sure you clearly communicate the fact that this is what we're doing. We're going to be up here from this time to this time. We've done the same thing for the past 5 years, and like kids love knowing that those events are coming, and like the routine and the rhythm of those ideas. And so last month we talked about healthy rhythms, and we kind of touched on this, but like a humongous point of culture and building this mindset that students have a place where they can depend on is the mindset of consistency, but then also utilize those opportunities for first impressions. When you have a new student, obviously like David did, pour into that student, find leaders, find students, give opportunities to where they are directly and immediately engaged. Um, Check in on them, introduce yourself, have leaders introduce themselves. If you, I tell my kids, if it's someone you know, immediately go say hi, and then drag them around the youth room and show them everything. And it just gives them an opportunity to immediately be engaged and immediately be tied into what they're doing. Um, and for you as a leader, goodness gracious, please, and this is something I struggle with, but my group's kind of getting to the point to where I'm going to have to find a different way to utilize this, because remember their names. Especially new kids, if you can do anything, try to remember their names. A lot of times I will put a description in my phone, or I'll subtly take a picture and be like, hey, this is this girl, or this is this guy,
I
kind of
was
thing
even
like
going to
that.
say, like, to that
Or
point, because I did that with this kid this last week. Um, I've long been a fan of letting the students in on the sort of the secret sauce, so to speak. Like, I'm going to let you know all of my secrets. Why? Because it shouldn't be secret. At the end of the day, like when a
that's true.
student sees that you're being intentional, it makes them feel good. And so, so he told me his name was Oscar, and here's why I remember it because he said his name was Oscar, and I was like, Oscar, Oscar, Oscar. And I was like, I am terrible with names. I kept looking at him. I was like, Oscar, Oscar, Oscar. I worked for a burrito shop. It was called Oscar's Burrito. Best fajita burrito I've ever had in my life. And he was like, ooh, fajita burritos? I love fajita burritos. What's your favorite? And I was like, he was like, beef or chicken? And I was like, both. And he was like, I always say that. And I was like, beef and chicken fajita burrito with queso. Oscar's Burritos. Just like that, we've made a connection. We both love fajita burritos.
Yeah.
I won't forget his name because Oscar's Burritos was like a job I did when I was young, and I loved it because I got a free burrito every day, and that was like my favorite burrito. And I've never found a fajita burrito better than Oscar's Burrito. Shout out to Oscar and Amarillo, wonderful guy, um, amazing Christian man. Anyway, um, and so I made this connection with him, and then because of that, that kid followed me everywhere I went, and I was like, why? Because he saw the intentionality behind it. He may not have necessarily
Yeah.
realized he's a junior high boy. He may not have realized it, but there was something about that situation, and he saw that. When students see us being intentional, even if we got a flail doing it, who cares? They see that you're
Yeah.
trying, and that's all that matters. Some of these
Yeah.
students don't get a lot of adults in their life who try that
Yeah.
hard to care. They want to see it, so show it.
Yep. Yeah. Very much. And it's one of those things like, um, I don't remember who put this stat out, but I've seen this a couple times. Um, Students decide in the first 10 minutes if they'll return. Those first 10 minutes are critical. Those first 10 minutes have to be engaged. If they sit off in the corner and they don't know anybody and nobody talks to them, they're not coming back. um, because it's important. So, in using those opportunities, using that first impression time to engage those students is critical. And it is so much better when you're not the person doing it. When you're the only person doing it, it does work. But when you have leaders that step up and go introduce themselves, when you have students go up and go introduce themselves or say, "Whoa, hey, I'm so glad you're here," because they know them from school, like stuff like that is absolutely critical to those first 10 minutes. And then the thing is like you said, after that, you start working on those connection pieces or those common grounds that you have with those students, and you start building those bridges and building those networks to where you're like, oh, like you love fajita burritos, I love fajita burritos, like, and then down the road there might be an opportunity where y'all go grab a fajita burrito together, something of that nature. I'm just saying, but it's one of those things that you find those network opportunities, but that first 10 minutes is crucial. If you see kids walk into your student ministry and you don't have people engaging them, that needs to be fixed. And it does get different as your group gets bigger. But the thing is then you have a team of people that you're like, hey, look, this is your job. When you get here on Wednesday nights or Sunday nights, you look for new people. If there are not new people, then you welcome all the people that are here. And basically, that's how welcome teams and greeter teams come to play.
That's important having
And
that
so with
step
that,
two there, though. I think so many times we
yeah,
stop at
yeah,
welcome new people. We don't have any new people. We got the night off. No, no, you're still welcoming new people, but now
mhm.
you're being intentional.
Which is why you're not the new people welcome committee. You're the welcome committee or the welcome
Huge.
team.
Write that down. If you're not taking notes, you should be. Write that down. That's good. That's real good, Brent.
Yeah. So, but remember names, remember people, have students, have leaders that are willing to step up and do that too. And then also, like, one of the things is you want to work on their retention too. And so maybe you can be like, hey, like, especially for your student welcome team or something to that nature, be like, hey, I want you to tell me 5 people that you interacted with tonight. And if you have anybody that's new, give me their names. That way they have to remember too. A lot of times when a friend, like when someone in our youth group brings a friend, I'll be like, hey, come see me back at the computer because I'm immediately putting them in planning center. But I'm like, hey, tell me about your friend, kind of thing like that. And so a lot of times I utilize planning center as the, oh, hey, we need your picture for the database, like so, and I use that too, just for the sake of it's an opportunity once again to have that and remember that person's name. And if I can get their picture and they checked in, I know for a fact that I can go back on my phone before I walk up to them next week and be like, "Oh, hey, so glad you're here." And I might not remember their name, but I can at least show the fact that I cared enough to do research to figure it out. Um, so community and that importance of networking and that importance of culture is huge. Utilize that. And the tie-in for this week from the Bible is Romans 12:10, and I think this hits it on the head. Be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourselves. Belonging is Christian community. If you have a group that does not belong, that is the first and ultimate priority that you really need to be starting to work on, because when you utilize that belonging and you work towards building those relationships, then Jesus conversations will happen. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Because when students feel comfortable enough to ask questions, they'll start asking questions about things that you're teaching. So, and so just some kind of thoughts towards closing this episode. Just some challenges for this week. Evaluate your youth group's culture. What do you celebrate? And so with that, I've spoke on this a couple times over the last couple weeks. There's a couple things that we celebrate from the leader's perspective. We celebrate the fact that we win when students make a step in their faith. Stole that from Kenny and L. Campbell a long time ago, but we utilize it still to this day because no kid's faith journey looks the same. And so when they take a step in their faith, we celebrate. And then as far as students, we very, very much articulate it and we announce it every single week. We celebrate students in 4 ways. We celebrate when you bring someone, we celebrate when you pray over someone, we celebrate when you share the gospel with someone, and we celebrate if you have a friend that you shared the gospel with except Jesus. And so those 4 things, we celebrate them with obviously just like congratulations and celebration and stuff like that. But we also have a ping pong ball wall that we use. Totally stole that from another youth group. But basically, like they drop in ping pong balls, different colors for different things that they did, and then the students get to see the ping pong balls rise in that wall as with the year progresses. And then eventually we'll have to get to the point where we'll be like, hey guys, the wall is full. We gotta dump the wall, and we're gonna make like a big celebration out of that. Just for the fact of like, look, in the last 5 years, we had 156 kids invited to youth group. We had whatever. I mean, I'm just making up numbers, but like literally, we can go back and count the different colored ping pong balls. And it's also, you're getting analytics on your group, which is a backup win for you administratively, because then you can go to your church and be like, hey, look, in the last 5 years, we had 256 kids come to our youth group. We had 75 kids pray over their friends out loud in person. We had the gospel shared 37 times, and we had 6 kids come to Jesus. Like, and it's like literally it's there for you. It's such a great thing. And we love having the opportunity to utilize that. So, but what is being celebrated in your group? Evaluate your group's culture, evaluate the things that you need to work on. Are there clicks? How is your first impressions going? Do you celebrate fun and joy as spiritual disciplines? Those are all huge things. Ask a new student, and this might be like, oh, I had one last week, or I might have had one a month ago. Ask a new student about their first impression. And it might be like, hey, like you've been with us for like a month now. Hey, I have a question for you. Like, what was your thoughts about our group the first night you came? Once again, that's building that relational bridge. It's showing intentionality. It's showing vulnerability because you're asking a student a question that you want the answer for. All of these just kind of funnel back into the points that we mentioned today. And then finally, celebrate one act of belonging this week. Where is somewhere in your culture where you've seen a kid belong, or where you've built this sense of belonging in your community of youth? Really, really easy things to do, but those 3, even though they're challenges for this week, I would say that they're weekly or monthly challenges of like, you should have this on a piece of paper and you should evaluate these things regularly, because it's not a one and done situation. All 3 of those are really, really important. And so, yeah, just your mindset. David, do you have any closing thoughts? Any last comments before we close off
I
this
don't. I
episode?
think everything has been said. I love it.
Sweet, man. Well, with that being said, it is time for us to close this episode. Once again, we say this almost every week. We would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this episode or any of the other episodes? You can reach out to us, podcast at studentministryconversations.org, or you can reach out to us on social media at Talk Student Men. I will say primarily we do Facebook and Instagram. Those are the 2 that we are on the most. And so if you follow us on either of those, shoot us a message. We'd love to start a conversation and just hear your thoughts. And then finally, the last thing is if you appreciate or if you enjoy this podcast, share it with your youth pastor friends. We don't do any advertising. We have never had advertising. We don't plan on doing advertising. So literally our growth is 100% on our listeners, and we're okay with it. If we help 20 youth pastors, great. If we help 20,000 youth pastors, great. We don't care. Our goal is to equip, encourage, and inspire the youth pastors that listen to this podcast. And hopefully you are one of them. So if you like this, like it, share it, do whatever you can, and share it with your youth pastor friends. That way maybe they can feel or listen to the same thing that you just thought was awesome, hopefully. If not, tell us, and we'd love to hear from you as well. But with that being said, we are done. We hope you have a great week. We hope you have a great night of youth whenever that is, and we will see you next week.